Welcome to the ICU Podcast, where we explore the vestibular experience through conversations between patients and the health professionals who care for them.
During this podcast, we invite patients to share their stories and healthcare professionals to ask questions so they are equipped to better care for and truly see the invisible challenges faced by their patients. I'm Kimberly Warner.
And I'm Cynthia Ryan, and we are your hosts on this journey of discovery.
Welcome, everyone, to the ICU Podcast. This is going to be a fun session today where we explore humor and gratitude and how they can become powerful tools for coping with chronic vestibular disorders. Living with dizziness, vertigo, and imbalance can often feel so isolating and overwhelming, but laughter and thankfulness can help restore balance to both body and mind. Research shows that humor can lower blood pressure, reduce stress hormones, boost immune function, and even trigger endorphins, our body's natural painkillers. Similarly, practicing gratitude has been linked to better sleep, improved mood, and enhanced overall well-being. And who doesn't need that? So our guests today, a vestibular patient who found resilience through laughter, and health coach Hilary Russo, creator of HIListic approach to mindful self-compassion, share how humor and gratitude have transformed their healing journeys and offer practical ways to bring more lightness and appreciation into everyday life. So I'm going to introduce our first patient guest, Mary Ziegler. She used to be a reliable, hardworking, and dedicated wife and mother. But when Meniere's disease and vestibular migraine hit, she had to leave her job and stop driving. One of the things Mary misses the most is helping other people. She misses parties with friends and family, but she has devised ways to dwell in joy and gratitude. She likes being a Vita ambassador because it allows her to help people in Chicago, where she lives, and all over the world. She is grateful for her family and friends, and grateful that she has a team of doctors who recognize that she's an expert in her condition. Welcome, Mary.
Thanks, Kimberly.
And I have the pleasure of introducing our other guest, Hilary Russo. She is a certified trauma-informed holistic mental health practitioner and health coach, one of only 50 certified Havening technique trainers globally. And I hope that we get to hear more about what the Havening technique is when we get into this conversation. Due to her work in the Havening and trauma-informed care, Hilary is a recommended referral partner with the nationally recognized Amen Clinics for Brain Health. Her extensive background in media and military life gives her a unique perspective on working with secondary trauma, chronic stress, and burnout. And how can gratitude and humor not help with that? Mm-hmm. She is the host of the globally top-rated podcast, Hilistically Speaking, and creator of the Hug It Out method, which reminds you to access self-healing through humor, understanding, and gratitude. Hug. And be a pioneer practitioner of your own life. Welcome, Hilary.
Thank you so much, ladies. It's a pleasure to be here.
And sorry, I botched up I know Hilary from the past. And so when I'm reading this and then I'm looking at the Hilistically Speaking and Holistically and Hilary, everything just scrambled in my brain. But
don't worry, because it makes me feel better.
Or we're always a little scrambled.
Mistakes.
I do not. It's fine. We are human, and I think that's really why we're here, right? Is that sometimes the human in us steps in, but the ego loves to step over the human, right?
Well, so for anyone that's wanting to learn more about Hilary, if you probably just Google Hilistically, she'll come up, because I don't know if there's any other holistic practitioner.
I love a good play on words.
Yeah, exactly. So, Mary, let's begin with you, as we always do, and back up a little bit. You've had a vestibular disorder for a very long time, and as we all know, they can be incredibly challenging. So tell us, how did humor first become part of your healing process?
Boy, I have to think about that from the very beginning. Well, the first attack in which I really realized, oh, I better go get this checked out, lasted for 6 hours. So I got up one morning and I went to take a shower. I didn't realize the room was spinning because I was tired and asleep. And so I stepped into the shower and the room was spinning about 600 miles an hour. Then I crawled back into the bedroom, got in bed, woke up my husband, and for 6 hours the room spun around and I threw up into my wastebasket. Now you have to realize this was 1999, but my wastebasket was from 1969. And I saved that wastebasket after I threw up in it because Paul Newman was on it and Steve McQueen and Marlon Brando. I bought it to take to college, if you don't think I'm a hoarder. So I think the funniest thing that happened, well, it was kind of funny throwing up on poor Paul Newman. Secondly, that afternoon, I think, our children went to Pier 1, which is a store, national store, but one here in Chicago, and brought me a very elegant bowl and brought it upstairs. So if I kept throwing up, I could throw into this nice bowl. So, and that we still own too, but I won't tell you what we do with it.
Now, I'm curious, in that moment of throwing up on Paul Newman, was there even a moment then in this, in the thick of misery, did you even have a moment of, this is kind of weird?
Well, yeah. And plus I was spinning dizzy, and the outside is a picture of these movie stars from probably the 60s, maybe even the 50s. And the inside of it was that Peter Max kind of op art. So I got even dizzier every time I threw up into the wastebasket because the op art was all, I shouldn't do that with my hands. If there's vestibular patients looking, they won't. But it's very distorted, lines and colors. So I probably didn't think it was real funny until I stopped throwing up, to be honest. Yeah. But it was kind of, in retrospect, most things are funny. It's credited to a lot of people, but I believe Mark Twain did actually say that comedy is tragedy plus time. So I think that's really true. Other people have said it too, but I know he said it. Absolutely. So most things are pretty funny in retrospect. And I basically think humor as a boat on which to sail through our lives comes from both sides of my mom and dad's families. My grandmother always said, everything's funnier in church. And that's really true. So too bad fewer of us go to church, but that would be one recommendation I'd have if you want to laugh. Go to church, everything's funnier there, or the synagogue or wherever. And the hardest I've laughed in my life are after really tragic deaths. And after, in my sister's hospital room, when she was diagnosed with leukemia and had a very small chance of living, which she's fine now. But so it's not funny that she had leukemia, and it's not funny that people died, but somehow that's what our family does, is tell funny stories or interrupt with funny remarks. When my sister had leukemia, I started, that was back in the days of robocalls when people would call you on the phone, not a machine. And it wasn't very nice to me, but people would say, well, how are you today, Mrs. Ziegler? And I'd say, well, not too good. My sister only has a 20% chance of living. So she started answering all the calls she was getting. Bake for the bake sale? Nah, leukemia, might die. So anyway, it is definitely a way. It's not really Black humor. It feels like it when I'm saying it now, but it's just getting together and laughing is a really healthy thing
absolutely,
for our family.
Absolutely.
Wow. So I'm wondering, Hilary, how do you incorporate humor into your health coaching practice? And can you talk a little bit about why laughter can be such a powerful part of the healing process?
Absolutely. And I just want to say, Mary, the way that you have intertwined humor into those difficult situations, I think it's a reminder that we do find the laughter in the lessons. It might not be in the moment when it's happening, but when we can look back and say, oh, well, was that as big as I made it out to be in the moment. And so, yeah, humor is a big part of the work that I do. It's not lessening the upsets we have. It's certainly not telling people not to feel what they're feeling. And, as a trauma-informed practitioner of both havening and hypnotherapy, and even using it in my health coaching, it's a reminder to self, meaning me, and to those that I'm supporting, that when we take time to understand that the humor does always exist there, it's just really sometimes it's not the right time for it. But when we come back, we can see those little lessons that we can take away in the learning, right? And that's really how I came about with the Hug It Out method. Taking a dive into that, I love that Hug It Out is an acronym that has both H, the humor, and G, the gratitude, with the U in the middle being understanding. And this isn't about outward. It's humor that you have in the things you go through, big and small, the understanding you have for who you are and how you're showing up in the world, right? What are your core values? What's the walk-in song that you would play if you're walking on the stage, right? And the G is not about the gratitude outside of self, but rather, what's the gratitude you have for self? How often do you self-appreciate? And, there's science behind this, that we need to have more moments of gratitude as well as humor. And it's probably why we're seeing more higher level of learning now in PhD degrees even that are offering the science of happiness or the well-being of gratitude. I mean, it exists because we are now measuring consciousness in that manner.
Yeah.
Yeah. It reminds me of, there's my sister-in-law always says, hindsight is 20/20 and funny, which is just a nice play on words. But there's all those chemicals that we need in our body, that during a vestibular storm or a crisis that we're experiencing, hope is sometimes really hard to grasp. And I heard a quote the other day that the antidote to despair isn't hope, it's actually gratitude. And I love that, because we can always grasp gratitude, but hope is like sort of this and it kind of reaches us into the future. And what are we looking for? But gratitude is like, okay, I'm grateful for the sunlight on my back right now, or something so immediate. So I love that you've put those two together, Hilary.
Yeah.
And go ahead. I'm sorry.
I would love to say I have incorporated gratitude practice for myself, and I find that it's just being appreciative of the simple things, because we take so much for granted. Being appreciative that, we have family that, can be there for us, or friends, or, I'm appreciative that I have the opportunity to help people through my job. Not everybody has that. It really makes such a difference.
And that goes back to the self-gratitude right there, Cynthia, because you said, I'm appreciative that I get to help people. That's now bringing the gratitude back to self and what you're doing to serve the world. And it's very uncommon that we give ourselves credit, especially women. I mean, there have been studies that have been done that women don't like compliments. You don't take compliments as well. And so if somebody says to you, you look so great in that outfit, it's more likely for you not to say thank you. You are so right. Your likelihood to say something like, oh, this old thing, oh, I just found it. And like, we downgrade ourselves in a way, and that's to keep us safe. Because going back to what even Kimberly said, that you were talking about, you just mentioned something about how hope, right? Hope is uncertainty to some people. Hope isn't a definite, and our brains are designed to hold on to the negative because negativity keeps us safe. It's the amygdala has been designed to do since the dawn of time. And if our little amygdala, we call her Amy in the world of havening, if Amy doesn't feel safe, uncertainty can be part of that, even if the uncertain side might be a safer, real place, right? So it comes back to that design of like, what are you choosing to do for yourself? How can you sit in the discomfort in that moment and say, you know what, I'm great at my job. I'm a wonderful mother. I have an unbelievable desire to be my own healthcare advocate and have a better understanding of my vestibular disorder and be my own pioneer practitioner in my own life. These are all self-gratitude moments that are designed to build resilience.
Yeah. And those sound like, Hilary, like real, you have to make deliberate choices to have those thoughts. And I'm wondering, Mary, do you find that this choice to have humor or gratitude, does it show up naturally, or do you have to really make a conscious effort?
Well, gratitude probably shows up somewhat naturally, but gratitude, for me, gratitude's been a daily practice. Probably as long as I've had Meniere's, for about 29 years, as long as I've been diagnosed. And I found gratefulness.org, which is now called Grateful Living. They have a word a day, and I found that their word a day is from all centuries and all kinds of wisdom. So that could be modern Buddhist, it could be ancient Hindu or Sikh wisdom. It could be from a novel, or it could be from a poem. So I started with that to just focus on all the things that are wonderful in life. To appreciate stars and appreciate little tiny red flowers that are in the grass. But I also think that, so I think gratitude's, it comes naturally to me as a person to be thankful for things, but to be focused on living in the moment and really thinking about all the things I'm grateful for. So I have terrible vision, but I'm really grateful for the vision I have because of all the things I can see, mostly our grandkids, the water, as we've all mentioned earlier today. And then I think part of the humor is learning to reframe things. So my mom just died 2 years ago. So about 8 years ago, she had a stroke. And in the next few years, I had to take her to 6 different doctors. We went to a doctor every week, and all of them were new to her because of where she lived and where she got sick. So we'd go through these checklists, 6 pages of checklists for every new doctor. And at first it was a chore, and my mom didn't really want to do it. So I said, well, all right, Mom, I'll just ask you the questions and you give me the answer. So there's 2 ways that helped. First of all, everyone should do this. It's really sick with the vestibular disorder, because the sheet goes through every symptom you could possibly have in every system and structure of your body. And then you feel like, geez, thank goodness for my arms. Thank goodness I have a sense of touch. Thank goodness. So there's all these things that you actually don't have, when I think for most of the people in the support group that I co-host, people have at least 3 things wrong with them, vestibular disorder and 2 other things. And you start thinking that's your whole life, is you're a person with something wrong. Then you look at these checklists and you think, geez, look at all this other stuff I could have, and I don't even have it. But also asking my mom the questions. There's a whole page on sexual health and that kind of thing. So, asking my mom what was she using illegal drugs, and was my mother, who was at the time 93, how many sexual partners she'd had in the last 2 years. We really had fun. And we were doing this out loud in a doctor's office. So I think having a really low bar on dignity, useful. And, my mom at that point's 90 something and I'm 60 something. And so we didn't really care what we were saying or what people thought of us. Just, it was really fun. So that was both gratitude and look, Mom, you might have had a stroke, but so far your heart's okay. So I think that you can combine them with by reframing some things. So even when you fall down, it's not fun to fall down. It hurts. You break things. But if you picture yourself falling down and what you probably look like to the people around you, I'm sorry if none of you have ever laughed at a video or movie where somebody falls down. You're better people than I am, because you looked really funny falling down until you start bleeding or your leg broke.
Right.
Oh, I think it's natural, and for me, it's both natural and a practice.
Yeah.
And also to be easy on yourself. I think people, some of my yoga teachers that I had before I wrecked my leg, said that one of them in particular used to say it's not yoga perfect, it's yoga practice. And I think gratitude and using humor, as a way to sail through life, those are both practices. It's okay if you have a day where you can't find anything to be grateful for. You'll find something the next day.
Yeah. And, you mentioned laughing at somebody, the image of somebody falling. I mean, how many videos are there on social media of somebody falling or an animal doing a funny thing? They're everywhere. If you're looking for something to laugh at, it's easy to find these days.
Yeah. And I have some things written down. We can talk about it later, but I have a friend who's very serious and very much of a crusader for justice, but she also posts pandas falling down and goats fainting, and they're pretty funny.
Yeah,
especially if you're also working for social justice in some states. So
and you need a little bit of humor there.
that's right.
Hey, Hilary, I know that gratitude is often called a wellness multiplier. I'm interested in hearing what you think about what that means and how you help clients cultivate a genuine gratitude practice when they're dealing with difficult physical, mental, or emotional symptoms or setbacks. How do you help people stay positive when everything in their life is just feels so challenging?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I would say that I'm never the one doing it for them. I'm a guide by your side. I want to mirror back at you sometimes what you're not seeing yourself, because when we're in the depths of our upset, it's very hard to see the top of the hole that you feel that you're down, and it just reflecting back on something Mary said that about, the falling down part is like the saying, fall so many times, get up 8. I think that's a yoga practice, but
Yes.
I always go back to the old Weeble Wobble toy. Like that to me, I have a whole slew of vintage Weeble Wobbles. And if you're younger than the age of 50, I'm not sure you might know what this is, but you could Google it. But these were little toys that look like eggs. And the statement, the tagline of these little Weeble Wobbles were Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. So it's that idea of like, when you weeble and you wobble, you are designed to come back up. We are designed to come back up. So in those moments where we are feeling the despair and the upset and things feel like they are the worst thing ever, it's really taking a pause to step back. And if we're going to talk about gratitude, take that moment to think about, if it's hard to think about things that you're grateful for in self, start with the things that are even the smallest things that you can have gratitude for in life. You will find something. In fact, I never start a session with clients, or even in my Havening happy hours that I do every month online that I've been doing for 6 years now, since the first week of the pandemic, I don't start any conversation really without asking what's new and good. And there's a reason for that, because a lot of times when you ask somebody, how are you? They're going to go into either saying, I'm fine, everything's fine, or they just spew. And when you start with the what's new and good, you are reframing and kind of guiding your thoughts and your brain and creating new neural pathways to go down the road of, well, okay, I'm grateful I have a roof over my head. I'm grateful that I just made a great cup of coffee. I'm grateful that I have partnership or support on this journey. It's impossible to not have gratitude for these things that are in our lives. And once you do more gratitude, it creates more gratitude. It is in motion. It's a frequency. And that's not woo-woo, that's science. In fact, there have been many studies on gratitude. One of my favorites is a Harvard research study based on the work of Sean Aker, who wrote The Happiness Advantage, that talks about like 2 minutes of gratitude every morning. If you start with 2 minutes, instead of like picking up your phone for 3 minutes or reading the news or turning on the TV or swiping social media, there was a study that was done that the possibility of people having a good to happy day 8 hours later, 6 to 8 hours later, you have a 27% more likelihood. Yeah. Right. So why are we, if we're focusing on the good, we're going to create more good. We're going to create an energy around us to bring more good into our lives. And it's being very intentional, ladies, and to the people who are watching and listening. It's intentional. You can easily go down the rabbit hole with others who are talking about the turbulent times that we're in right now, just here in our nation, to the personal turbulence that you're feeling in your body, physically and emotionally. But if you are intentional about where your thoughts go, you have the ability to change the brain and change your thoughts, moods, behaviors, and habits. And some of you might be saying, well, that's not easy. I'm going through something. Well, if it was easy, everybody would do it.
Yeah.
And what doesn't challenge us doesn't change us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Hilary, one of the things I heard you say in the beginning was that you reflect back to your clients the good things that you're seeing and hearing. And I wonder if we all need to have people in our lives who are doing that for us, that it's, I mean, the people in our lives affect our perspectives, and to have these conversations with our loved ones and our friends, and to cultivate a community that supports this attitude of gratitude.
Yeah. And if it's not happening at home, like you said, Hilary, groups, like your happy hour, your Hug It Out happy hour, or Havening happy hour, or, Mary, you said you've been in a support group for a long time. I would imagine we can do that for each other if it's just. Oh yeah. Yeah.
There's power in community. There's power in community, whether it's somebody personal in your life, like a more intimate partnership or friend or family, to people who are going through that or something similar. We're never going through the same thing, but when we can come together as a collective and express and share our stories and just know we're being heard and held, there is something to be said that creates that safe container without you even trying. But it's finding the right place. Yeah.
As you said too. The support group that I co-lead with 2 other women, actually, I think it was the first time the Vita conference went online. There were about 10 of us who, we've had to quit work. We're still sick. So, excuse me, I apologize in advance, Cynthia. Sometimes the Vita magazine that comes out, which is, I think, online now, but, it focused on all these really positive stories. So I'm really glad for that person who's skiing again. And I'm really glad for that person who can, walk tightrope across the Grand Canyon again. I can't do that. I have trouble getting out of bed. And so everyone in our group is like that. We probably average about 30 people showing up. I can't even remember how many people are in the email. They're from all over the US and 2 places in Canada, and somebody from Amsterdam that sometimes calls in. But anyway, the thing about it is I never wanted to be in a support group till I hosted the support group. Because we met, about 10 of us met at the conference just through little meetup groups. And we realized, there are a lot of us out here. And so I always thought support groups, it might be depressing. Our support group, we spend a lot, people do cry, and we do a lot of problem solving, but also we spend at least a third of the time laughing.
Wow.
Because it is funny. You do look funny if I was thinking of a time I had wrecked my leg. So aside from a really bad balance disorder, I also had a wrecked leg. And we had a beautiful snow, and I was with my granddaughter who was 2 or 3. And so I went out and made snow angels with her, but I forgot I had to get up again. from the deep snow. So like plan ahead, that sign, plan. So you forget to plan ahead, and then you run into these problems. And so I had to like walk on my knees all the way across the yard to get to something I could pull myself up on, and that's really pretty funny. Or in the support group, we'll get a new person who'll say she'll be embarrassed, or he'll be, not want to say anything. And after the second time they're there, they say, does anybody else drop things? And then one of the hosts says, raise your hand if you drop things a lot, and every hand goes up. And it makes you feel like you're not crazy, number one, because with invisible illnesses, and it makes you feel very grateful for a community of people that are sharing your experience. So I agree, Hilary.
Yeah. So Mary, what other benefits have you noticed over time? You've been doing this gratitude practice for a long time. You've been integrating humor and perspective. So are you actually noticing some psychophysiological benefits?
For sure. I think I agree with Hilary about gratitude building on gratitude. So the more grateful you are, truly grateful, it's not phony, but the more you're thankful for things, the more things you find to be grateful for. So I have a lot of things I'm grateful for. Even these last 3 days, when you have 3 days of illness in a row, it's hard to keep perspective that it's not going to last forever. So that it helps me be more grateful. It helps me be grateful for my friends. I think it actually, appreciating gratitude has made me realize helped me realize people like helping, and I'm a helper. I've helped people for the first, 47 years of my life. I was your girl. I was there to help. But, let somebody else help. That makes them feel good. So, then there's like, I'm grateful to them for helping. They're grateful to me for finally asking for help. In terms of humor, I think humor makes life lighter, and it makes experiences funnier. So I talked like reframing your experiences. Before I got sick, first of all, you need to know I'm an oldest girl, and I'm an oldest child, and I'm the oldest grandchild on either side of our family. So you know that I'm always correct about everything. And I believe with all my heart until I got Meniere's disease. And I started making mistakes or getting confused. So this brain fog is kind of a gift, because it's given me enough humility that I will admit I am not always right. So my husband really appreciates that there's that shadow of a doubt that maybe I didn't tell him about that party. But I do think humor, it just keeps your life in perspective. And I even can think of a recent example is before I came back and got sick, so I might have overdone it. But I spent 10 days in California. My cousin died, and I'm very sad about that. But because I was going to her funeral, I visited my daughter in Los Angeles. And she's engaged to a man whose parents came here from El Salvador, and they speak no English. So I had long conversations with these parents who speak no English, despite the fact that I speak almost no Spanish. That's pretty funny, number one. And number two, I think gratitude and having a good sense of humor have opened me up to, being willing to do that and just sit with somebody for 2 hours. And then also I just noticed I was in California, and the barometric pressure was stable for 10 days. So that's good for me. But mostly once I got to the funeral, which was very sad, but nevertheless, that was 2 or 3 days of laughing with my cousins I grew up with, who I haven't seen in ages. And then I went on to my aunt and uncles and another set of cousins who have been in the wine business since the late 1800s. Not them, their family. Nobody's that old. But the cousins who are in my generation are younger than I, went out and found a bankrupt winery a few years ago, and they bought the winery and they bought the grapes that were hanging on the vines in the winery and started their own business. And It's so much fun to be there.
Yeah.
And there's 10 kids in the family that's my generation, and then they have kids. And
funerals can be really funny. There's a movie called Death at a Funeral, and they do a fabulous job at turning all the things that should be proper and serious into just one comedic sketch after another.
Well, and you also remember every funny thing the person who died ever said, every funny thing that happened to you together. So there's a lot of that. Being with my aunt she likes to see me because it makes her think of her sister, who's my mother. I like to be with her because she's acting exactly like her mother, my grandmother, which she would not want me to say. She gets angry if I say that.
I do that with my sister too. You're acting just like mom.
Yeah, I know it's an insult.
Mary, when I listen to you and I think of the people that we're around that we like being around the most are very often the people that are funny, that can hold humor. We want that in our lives. And Hilary, I'm curious, what happens on a psychological or emotional level when we allow ourselves to laugh or feel grateful, even during moments that are, painful, when we're experiencing dizziness or some other type of uncertainty?
Yeah, well, ask yourself that question. Like, how do you feel when you allow, which is such a beautiful word, allowance and permission for self to do something that actually feels good? But this goes back to what we were saying before. Sometimes we protect ourselves. We create this force field around us. I'm not supposed to feel. I just lost somebody and I'm in grief and I have to go through these stages. So I can't be happy yet. It's like, rip the clothes. I'm in mourning until I'm told I'm not mourning anymore, right? But of course you go through mourning, but even in the mourning period, and I will say firsthand, just in my own experience, going through the grief and loss of my father that happened, almost 25 years ago, I didn't understand how to process that myself. And every time I would talk about my dad, I was holding on to something. And my father was disabled, by the way. My father was an amputee, and so much humor with this man, so much brilliance. And people would kind of tread around him sometimes that didn't know him, walk on eggshells because he was an amputee. And he would be like, okay, I'm an amputee, so I can count up to 15. What's the big deal? Right? So like the little humorous moments that just lean into it. It doesn't take away the grief. It doesn't take away the steps of grief, even that they say there are. It's just allowing you to be human again. We need those moments. And, in my personal experience, even when I was younger, I was at 1 year old, my first birthday, I burnt my hand and I got a 3rd-degree burn. And it really did a lot of damage on my hand to this day. I never had it fixed because to me, it's my beautiful scar. That is visual. You can see it, right? And my mom and I, for a long time, she held on to the pain of who was watching Hilary that day, that she grabbed a steam pipe, right? So there was a lot of guilt. It's so hard for mom. But at some point we came into I cracked a joke at her. I was like, Mom, I swim really well to the left, right? and so it became a little lighter. I gave her permission to forgive herself. And, I don't have a diagnosed vestibular disorder, but I will say even in this stage in my life, I have moderate obstructive sleep apnea. And I got this from when I was 15 years old. I had major jaw surgery because I had TMJ. And here I am 35 plus years later, now dealing with a breathing issue, an airway health issue that really bugs me. And sometimes it throws me off kilter because you're dealing with hypoxia, right? Not enough oxygen to the brain. And sometimes I even think about, where's the humor in that? Where's the sometimes she's a little Darth Vader when she sleeps, all right? But what gets measured gets managed. I was able to have a sleep study and realize this is I got it measured. Now I learn how to manage it and build an army around me that can help me with this. So really, Mary, it's going back to the permission and the allowance that we give ourselves to be okay, not being okay.
Right.
And
I agree, Hilary.
and lean into that. Lean into that humor, lean into that gratitude, and by far have some understanding for who you are and the work that you're doing to become the amazing person that you are already are.
I think another thing is getting over ourselves. We have to get over ourselves.
Get over yourself, right?
Getting over yourself. But I think what Hilary said is really true, and it's a piece of gratefulness that, because I remember when I first got diagnosed with Meniere's, which I was sure I didn't have. I must just have a little ear vestibularitis, just a little infection. And I was like classic textbook Meniere's. But I remember leaving the doctor and thinking, well, I'm going to need a cane, and I was 45 or however old I was, less than that. And I thought, oh, that's terrible. I'm going to need a cane. But, by the next day, even I'm like, thank goodness for canes. I won't fall down. But I did manage to fall down. But now I have this Humvee of a walker, and I can go to. I've been to up and down the West Coast in national parks. I can walk 8 miles. So thank goodness for eyeglasses, and thank goodness for hearing aids, and thank goodness for walkers. So I think that's where you have to pull yourself up.
And thank goodness for supportive people around you. But one thing that was just mentioned is the get over yourself, right? And I think that's part of what I try to share with people with the Hug It Out way. And it is that a lot of times we've heard the term hug it out. When two people get into an upset, somebody else might come along and say, oh, why don't you just hug it out? You agree to disagree, hug, make up, deal with it later. Fine, we do a lot of that, right? But when's the last time you hugged it out and made amends with your own mind? We are our own worst bully. We are the worst person on the playground with ourselves, and we are so hard on ourselves. So if you make amends with these little things that you might have to tweak and move and change, then we are giving ourselves grace. We don't give ourselves enough grace. And that's truly what it means to hug it out with yourself.
I love that, Hilary. And it sounds like, the way that I've seen you even practice it, can literally be as simple as hugging yourself. So as a physical cue to go, oh yeah, I'm being hard on myself. Let's shift this.
Yeah. And definitely hug it out is not one method. It's, and you're mentioning, I think you're talking a little bit about even just a self-touch or even the Havening techniques, which is a neuroscience-based approach that uses touch and positive thought to rewire the brain. But it could be anything where you are hugging it out. And the more we do this, the more we self-apply and self-nurture and self-soothe, the more we're talking to that little voice inside of ourselves saying you're safe. It's all about safety.
And really, I think you're right about even hugging yourself, because deep pressure is good for us. Getting under a heavy blanket. When I'm dizzy, I put things on top of my head. Some of the dizzy people say, are you kidding? That drives me insane.
No, I do too.
But I put really heavy things on my head and my forehead. It's calming and it's organizing. So
Mary and Hilary, I'm wondering for both of you how you would answer this, because I know, so these are really good coping tools. But what about that person that is just like in the darkest underworld? And I know all vestibular patients and chronic, we've all been there, where we think we are literally dying. How do you shift perspective in that moment?
Well, for me, coming from a trauma-informed space, and this, Kimberly, it's using tools and techniques and supporting my clients or even people I love and care about, or myself, with distractions. Okay. So just to briefly sharing one thing that I do that about, Kimberly, which is the Havening touch. Touch releases oxytocin, it's serotonin, dopamine. We need this for survival. So like when I talk about Havening, which is this neuroscience-based approach that you can use on yourself to self-soothe and self-regulate for self-care, when you use the Havening touch, which is as simple as just putting your hands together like you're washing your hands, or giving yourself a hug from your shoulders down to your elbows, that simple stroking motion, or even gently on your face. When you do this touch and pair it with a distraction, which is anything outside of what's causing you the upset, that could be counting to 20, singing a song. It could be reciting the alphabet, or looking even out the window and counting all the beautiful birds that are around the bird bath, or whatever it might be for you. When you pull to a distraction while you are self-soothing, you're releasing those neurochemicals, the oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine, GABA. You're also producing more delta waves in your brain, which is the slow moving brain wave, the slowest brain wave you have. Those are your sleep state brain waves. And when you do that, you downregulate. And when you're in a state of like upset or panic, we need to know how to downregulate ourselves, because we don't always have the therapist in the pocket or somebody with us. Having self-regulation tools that can help you in that moment builds the resilience. And the more you do it, the more easily it happens. And the more you're going to want to do it, because you know how to make yourself feel good. So,
yeah, I agree with that. And I think I would add, there's maybe a few other tools besides the ones you mentioned, but the other thing is patience. So with people who are your friends or people in the support group, there's some people who I won't name, but I can remember the first time they came to the support group worrying that, oh, this person's going to be kind of a problem. And, 4 months later, they're one of the leaders in the support group of picking other people up. So I think being patient with yourself, which that's what's hard for me, that, this is going to take you. I used to be able to bake things in, 20 minutes. Now it takes 3 hours, or I just don't bake. But, be patient with yourself. But mostly realize, like for me, it's taken me 29 years to get to where I am. So maybe it's going to take this person I just met a little bit longer, especially if they're really, I'm thinking of somebody who recently came really dysregulated and terrified. I don't blame them. It's very dysregulating and terrifying. So don't expect them you can't say 5 things to them, even if it's the best technique in the world, and expect them to get better in 1 second. Well, all right, snap out of it.
Well, that's the worst thing you can tell somebody. Get over it, calm down. What's your problem? I mean, and sometimes we say those things to ourselves too. We get frustrated with ourselves because we compare everything to the currency of time. And, you go back to the Mark Twain quote. I think it was Mark Twain that also said time doesn't exist, right? We are putting so much emphasis on time. Why can't I do it like I used to? Right. Or why is this taking me twice as long? Maybe that is maybe that is the grace of things. Right. You're giving yourself the grace to appreciate what is before you. Why do you have to rush to do the things that you were doing? So there's something to be said about having more space to do things. We'll call it space over time, because I think time, we are always racing against the clock. So how much space do you want to give yourself? A safe space to have a better understanding of who you are and how you can show up now, and try to think about ways that you're more enlightened by the person you are. You have more wisdom. You have more life experiences. We can do so much with the knowledge and the time on this planet to maybe be somebody else's survival guide at another point in time.
Well, and also in the vestibular community, many of us had a very sudden change. So I'm thinking of a friend who one day he couldn't get up, and he never got up again. He's been up off the bed, but he never went to work. So if he went from going to work to waking up and being sick the rest of his life, and that's hard. Yeah. So the danger is you're always comparing yourself to that person you used to be, and it's something that's natural, but it's not helpful to do that. It's helpful to start with appreciating the moment, as you said, and then add some more moments, and then you can appreciate the new you. I'm going to forget the Joseph Campbell quote I always say about you have to let go of the life that you had to be willing to be ready to accept the life that you will have or do have now.
Yeah.
I'm hearing so many things from you, Mary, and Hilary that really tie together. Mary, you were talking about patience, mindfulness, and living in the moment, and Hilary, you were talking about the neurological process that happens in your brain, and this takes time. I think that some vestibular patients who are listening to this will recall the term neuroplasticity, which we talk about a lot in terms of vestibular rehabilitation. It takes time to change those
to build those new connections. And
and you're creating new neural pathways every time you do something and you get a positive response. You're going to you're creating more neural pathways in the brain. So if you are and even look, and negative too, because there's the negativity bias, right? Like it's like Velcro compared to Teflon, which is the positivity bias. So you have choice, and choice is powerful. So you choose to choose, and it can be difficult and hard, and there are times you don't want to do a darn thing, and that's okay. And it's leaning into that. But when you think about how do you want to feel? When was the last time that you felt that way when you did something difficult and saw a change or something that you liked? And what if, because we tend to go to the what if negative, but what if it does work out rather than what if it doesn't work out? When we start doing that, we will create those new neural pathways. And it's amazing how much more you want to do something once it starts feeling good. Right?
I think, Cynthia, thank you for mentioning that, and for you for following up, Hilary, because people who are about 50 or older, we learned when in our youth that your brain stops growing at 14 or 20. And, that was just absolute gospel, rock solid science. Oh, no, it's all fixed. So I think you can't repeat too many times that, no, we're growing new axons and dendrites, and that makes for new connections. And if we grow the happy receptors by giving happy charges, that's kind of a simple way to put it, then you get more happy receptors. And if you don't grow those happy receptors, they die off and you're just left with the depressing receptors.
I'm totally nerding out on the fact that you brought up axons and dendrites. And I'm like such a nerd.
So
no, it's great. The whole idea of like, in your amygdala, if you remember back in science class, it has one job, and it's to keep you alive and safe. That's it. If it's not doing its job, you're not here. And if it didn't do its job, we would have been taken out by a saber-toothed tiger a long time ago when we were like, oh, that's a cute cat. I think I'll take it home. So like the fact that your amygdala is showing up and its job is to keep you safe, it will react with the fight, flight, freeze, fawn, defensive rage. What our job is as humans is, and with logic now, because this is part of that limbic system in your brain, what our job is to befriend the brain and realize that we can change it. 25 years ago, we didn't think so, but we have the ability to change it. And what I say, it's kind of like a hug for your amygdala. When's the last time you gave your amygdala a hug and said, we're good. I got you. You're safe.
Maria Rilke, she has they have a wonderful quote, and it's, perhaps everything terrible is in its deepest being something helpless that wants help from us.
Yeah.
So that's a hug to the amygdala. It's like we can acknowledge that, yes, the amygdala is going, oh my God, I'm dying. But there's also some other part of us that can rise up and offer help in that moment. It's never just one thing. It's never just the panic. And I think what you guys are both offering today is that opportunity to step outside of the amygdala's scream and say, I'm here to help.
Like, how do you show up for yourself, right? And then in this world that we're living in right now, it's turbulent in a lot of ways. And you can turn on a TV or look at your phone, or you overhear a conversation, and that too can impact your your amygdala's reaction, because your amygdala also doesn't know time or space. So it thinks it's its own thing. It thinks that you're going through it. Even if it's just, you heard about a car fender bender outside your home, and every time you pass that intersection, your hands get clammy, your heart starts racing, and suddenly you're dizzy or whatever happens, you are responding to what your amygdala thinks is actually happening to it.
Right.
So when you think that you can be kind of like a tour guide for your amygdala to go to a better place, you have that ability. And that's where the resilience building happens.
That's a good strategy when you, can't check out from reality, but if you take yourself outside yourself and look at yourself as this interesting patient, and you understand that, okay, flight or fright is very useful. Flight or fight, sorry. And what I saw as a speech and language pathologist, especially with kids on the spectrum, and even what I see in our group, men tend to be go toward the fight more often, not always. And so they're angry, they're lashing out verbally or physically, and women tend to go to the flight, which is being depressed and, hiding alone in your bedroom. And both of those extremes, we really, if we're aware of them, we can help ourselves, as you said, with them.
And both of those come back to safety anyway, whether you are the fighter or you're the retreater, you are feeling challenged with your safety. A man who shows up, the container protects, takes care of, suddenly is challenged by that. That feeling of safety is being taken away, because that was your safety. Same thing with somebody who takes the different approach, a different direction, that feeling of safety. So when you think about it, it really all comes back to safety. How safe do you feel?
Well, and you don't, speaking, because this is a vestibular podcast, when the room's spinning around at 600 miles an hour, or for me, going downstairs, because I lost my depth perception right away. So going down is always harder than going up. I don't know where the floor is. It's terrifying to go downstairs. So I figured a new technique recently. My niece got married in Virginia, and I was having to get off this big bus where, and everyone wants to help you, which is generally not helpful, if people try and grab you. So I just turned around and I went down the step backwards. And then I took, normally for a person with a compromised balance, bad idea, because you need your vision. In this case, my vision was telling me to be terrified. So just eliminate that part, go down backwards. It's not real graceful, I asked the group, please avert your eyes as I go down the bus backwards. But I could do it without being afraid. And I do that in our garage.
It sounds like, Mary, your relationship with this vestibular disorder has really changed since the beginning.
For sure.
And I mean, would you say that like humor and gratitude really had a lot to do with that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I do have bad days, as we've already talked about. By day 3 of being sick, I was feeling a little bit down, and does anybody understand me? My husband's like waiting on me hand and foot. Of course he understands me. So, but yeah, in general, I think gratefulness and humor, being with other people, laughing, exercise. I'm probably skipping, maybe meditation of some kind. Like for me, a distraction is even, because I might be in my head too much. I breathe in, I breathe out.
That is a distraction right there.
Distraction that you can
That's
do
the distraction.
wherever.
Yeah.
So
Hilary,
I have to be strong.
I love those very specific things that you can do to take back control of your mindset and how you're feeling. Hilary, do you have practical exercises or mindset shifts that you share with your clients that bring more humor and gratitude and self-compassion into their healing journeys?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, I'm not only, what is it, the old commercial? I'm not just the haircut president, I'm also the client, right? Like I'm learning, I'm in this life too as a human being. And I can't say that it's cookie cutter for any two people. It can't be cookie cutter for every session with the same person.
I agree.
It depends on meeting them where they're at in that moment. And for me, I'm supporting them and guiding them to tap into things about themselves. And there are many different methods that I use. Really, I mean, the Hug It Out method is a movement. It's not just a method, right? And it provides different ways of them tapping into something that brings them joy. What is that calmness? Where does it come? If I have somebody who's an artist, I might have them do something more creative in the space that could be a distraction for them in the moment. If I have somebody who is having difficulty visualizing, clearly I'm not going to say, close your eyes, let's go to that place, because they see black. Right. So I think it's really meeting people where they're at, but it's also just like really, I would say the main technique I use in my practice obviously is going to be havening, because I'm not only a certified practitioner of this, I'm a trainer. So I train doctors and nurses and therapists and teachers and different kinds of first responders, military, to use this in their own lives and then with those that they serve, because it is one of those very simple approaches that can change the brain and create a space for healing. It's what I'm calling the future of holistic mental health. Yeah. And the more tools we have in our little toolbox, or our brain candy jar, as I call it, the more things we can take out when we need them in that moment. Sometimes you need a hammer, sometimes you need a screwdriver. Right. So if you have a nice toolbox of things to use, you pick and choose what you need in that moment. I agree.
So, what I liked about some of the examples you gave too, and the same thing's true of I breathe in, I breathe out. I mean, there's mantras that are nice, but I like having things that are immediately available in any environment. So whether you're lying down in bed with the room spinning around, you can do I breathe in, I breathe out. And whether you're, depressed and on a boat, or a plane, or you're, in the middle of a fight with your partner, you can do the techniques you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, these are portable, these two things you have. And look, I've even supported people who have been amputees, or maybe they don't have all their appendages. But if you have, you have the ability to self-soothe, that's a really beautiful approach to show up for yourself. It's also, one of the things I love that I do share across the board, in addition to havening, are affirmational statements. I am is a very powerful sentence, and it goes back to biblical times. It is in the Bible, and I'm not saying this in a religious sense. I'm just saying these words have been around in language for a long time. It's what follows the I am that matters most. So if you're saying things like, I am not unable to do this, compared to I am challenged in this moment, but I'm continuing to try. That is the same sentence, basically, with a different mindset around it. I am failing miserably at school, compared to I am challenging myself. I'm giving myself an opportunity to learn more. I can do hard things, right? So I ams can be very powerful, and writing them down you're again changing the pathways. Right. And it's the language we use towards ourselves, which tends to be very hard sometimes.
Well, one of the things that I love about this past hour is normally, Kimberly, when we are talking on our podcast, we have these very, very heavy topics. And today, I think I've been smiling for the whole hour. I truly appreciate that we had so many positive things to share. And I truly appreciate both of you for sharing your experience and your expertise with us today. And I invite everyone who's listening to take a moment to think of one memory that makes you laugh, and one thing that you're grateful for.
That's a great ending, Cynthia. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Kimberly. Thank you, Hilary.
Thank you, ladies. It's been a joy.
Thanks for tuning in to ICU this month.
We hope this conversation sparked new understanding of the vestibular journey. And for all of our patients out there, leaves you feeling just a little more heard and a little more seen. I see you.